Welcome to Funnel Hacker Radio Podcast, where we go behind the scenes and uncover the tactics and strategies top entrepreneurs are using to make more sales, dominate their markets, and how you can get those same results. Here's your host, Dave Woodward.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Funnel Hacker Radio. I'm your host, Dave Woodward. Today, you guys are in for an amazing opportunity here from Adam Witty. Adam, welcome to the show.
Dave, thanks for being, thanks for letting me be with you.
So if some of you guys may not know who Adam is, he's actually the founder and CEO of Advantage Media Group and also Forbes Books, and is an author of 7 books. And really one of the main things we want to talk to you guys about today is the importance of becoming an authority. And the great thing, Adam has actually worked with a ton of entrepreneurs to really help them become authorities in whatever industry they might be in. Through the use of books, you've seen a lot of the things that we've done inside of ClickFunnels with obviously with Russell's Expert Secrets, with .com Secrets. And we really want to kind of dive right into this whole authority marketing type of conversation. Again, Adam's an expert in this, and you guys are in for an amazing ride. So get ready to take some notes, and we're going to just kind of dive right in. So with that, Adam, what exactly do you classify as authority marketing? What is that topic?
Yeah, so I hate to bring up politics so early in the podcast. But I'm going to use an example that is live and in the flesh, and that is the President of the United States is Donald Trump. Single-handedly, systematically used authority marketing to become the leader of the free world. And if you don't believe me, look at every other successful business person that has tried to be president before Trump, and none of them ever had any success. But Trump really started running for president in 1987 when he wrote his book, The Art of the Deal. And if you've ever gone back to read that book, he more or less lays out his campaign plan some 30 years ago. And over those last 30 years, very strategically, very systematically, Donald Trump has done things to make him appear larger than life, to build a name and to build a brand where people would literally want to put his name on top of skyscrapers. And I think it's such a great example of authority marketing, and certainly a very relevant one this day and age. But to answer your question, Dave, authority marketing is the strategic and systematic process of positioning an individual or a company as the leader and expert in their community, in their industry, in their marketplace. And it's all about this idea that when you're the authority, it gives you or it gives your company an unfair advantage over all your competition. You become the logical choice that people would prefer to work with over all of the alternatives. And the best news about all of this is that authority can be manufactured. It can be systematically and strategically created if you're intentional about it.
I love it. I love the idea as far as that unfair advantage. And I also appreciate understanding the fact that it actually can be manufactured. And I think these days, it's kind of interesting. I'm in the process right now. We have a huge event coming up here, September 15th, the day after this podcast is going to go live. And we've got a ton of influencers that we're bringing into Boise. We've got this viral video launch. And the amazing thing to me is this whole idea of authority. When I take a look at these YouTube influencers, and I'm just absolutely amazed at people who have literally manufactured their authority, who have millions of views, millions of subscribers, who are asking astronomical sums of money to fly into Boise. And I'm like, I've struggled so much at it because I'm like, you guys don't even do anything. And yet at the same time, they have this amazing authority and they command so many eyeballs. So I really kind of like to address the idea that you just brought up, and that is, how do you manufacture this kind of authority?
Yeah, so the first thing we should all remember as marketers is people buy on perception, oftentimes not on reality. And if you are the real deal, then someone will buy on perception, but you will back up those perceptions with reality. And so that's a fundamental thing that we as marketers have to remember is we are very much in the perception business. Now, when I say authority can be manufactured, what I mean by that is, look, you have to know something about your thing, whether it's the industry that your company's in, whether it's the community that your business operates in, or the marketplace. You have to know your stuff. But the bottom line is that there's a lot of people that know a lot of stuff about a lot of things, but they don't tell anybody that they know a lot of stuff about something. They don't do a very good job at getting the word out. And so when I say authority can be manufactured, it's this idea that there is a strategic and systematic way that you can promote your expertise so people will realize and recognize that you are a thought leader, you are an expert at your thing, which makes them, of course, want to hire you. It makes them want to work with you or work with your company.
I love that. I think that's the main thing I want to really kind of dive in. Is I know for a lot of the stuff you do, it's primarily through books. Is that correct?
Yeah, so no doubt that when you become the author of a book, when you're the guy or gal that wrote the book on the topic, that in and of itself, a lot of situations where people automatically say, whoa, you wrote the book on it?
Yeah, we broke up the audio there a little bit. So if you don't mind, for some reason, tell us a little more as far as when you're the authority, when you write that book. Let's go from there, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so when you write the book on the topic, no pun intended, it really is seen as many as being the trump card because it demonstrates to the audience that you know what you're talking about. Otherwise, how in the world could you have written 150 or 200 pages on the topic? And so what book authorship does is it communicates to your prospect that without a shadow of a doubt, you know a lot about this topic, and they should trust you as the service provider, as the expert to help them with whatever it is they need helping on that topic.
So let's talk a little bit about how long does it, so we see a lot of books these days being written. A lot of people trying to manufacture that authority, whether it's they become part of an anthology type of book where it's some major face and they put a whole bunch of other chapters behind it and they try to use that as authority. What type of book are you really talking about that creates real authority? Because you're talking, 150 plus pages, that's some real content. So help me understand exactly what type of book and how do they actually create these things?
Real authority comes from real books. You can't fake it and you can't mail it in. So you were just mentioning, Dave, these anthology books where you write one chapter, 30 other people write one chapter, and they get a really famous celebrity on the front cover. And now you can say, and I say that in air quotes, you co-authored a book with Richard Branson. Well, no, you didn't. You wrote a chapter, and that chapter was submitted to someone who then paid money to Richard Branson to agree to let them put his name on the cover. So really, to build authority, you do need a real book. And so that's 150 page, that's a 200 page book. That's significant. That's 30,000 words, maybe 35,000 words. In the publishing industry, we say, what's a real book? Well, you can tell a real book by the thump factor. And the thump factor is the noise the book makes, that thump sound when you put it down, when you kind of throw it down on a table. If it's a real book, it makes a real thump. If it's a pamphlet, you can barely hear it at all. And so to build authority, that real book, it creates without a shadow of a doubt, it just creates this immense amount of credibility. And if you write a good book, that's engaging, that's informative, that really helps teach and lead your prospects down the right path, what you'll find is that people will read your book and they'll be calling you and emailing you and saying, how do I talk to you? How do I hire you? How do I hire your company to help implement this or help make this happen in my business?
So let's kind of talk real mechanics on this kind of thing. Because I know that, I'm sitting here, I've got Expert Secrets in one hand and .com Secrets in the other. Two of the books that Russell wrote, both over 250 pages. I mean, that's the type of thud factor that you get when these things hit the ground or hit the table. And I understand that. I saw Russell go through this, the pain, and it was like a birthing process. And I know a lot of authors are really afraid to actually go through that. But it's one of the things that you've done to kind of simplify that process. So what have you done to actually make it easier for authors to get these books out?
Yeah, so you make a really good point. And that is that each entrepreneur and each CEO that decides to write a book, they become their worst enemy. And the reason they become their worst enemy is the standard that you have for yourself is typically much, much, much higher than the standard others have for you. And so what is really helpful, useful content to a novice, to you, is chicken scratch. And you have to work hard with our authors, help them realize that they don't have to give a doctoral dissertation in a book. In fact, the simpler the book can be, the more effective it typically is as a marketing tool. It's really true that a book should be written to meet a reader that's reading at roughly a 5th or 6th grade level. When you try to get really fancy and really technical, that's when you can lose a lot of people. The second thing that I can tell you, Dave, is that most ADD entrepreneurs, and I say that term affectionately because I'm one of them, we could talk until the cows come home about our thing, right? I could talk about books. Russell could talk about conversion. You could talk about ClickFunnels. We could talk about it for days. But if you then ask us to sit down at a keyboard and start writing, we look at a blank screen for an hour. And the reason is that most entrepreneurs, they're very good off the cuff. They're very good verbally. They've got lots of ideas that are just coming out of their head at a mile a minute. But they can't communicate that in a written word nearly as well. So about a decade ago, we saw this trend and we said, what if we could just interview the author and ultimately turn those interviews into the book so they didn't have to sit down and write the book themselves. And we pioneered a program called Talk Your Book. And so it's just what it says. Instead of sitting down and writing a book, we're going to interview you. And it's a very structured, very intentional interview. So it's not off the cuff by any means. But by getting the entrepreneur to talk about something that they're passionate about, that they have lots of knowledge about, and in many cases, they have a lot of great stories to support, by getting them to talk about it, our ghostwriters could take all of that content and all that information and turn it into what could be a really great manuscript for a book. And so literally, we were able to help people get a book done in about 10% of the time that it would otherwise take them if they were to sit down and try to write the book on their own.
That is fantastic. I know that is one of the main things most entrepreneurs struggle with is time. So the ability to create that kind of content within a tenth of the time. So what do they get out of that? I mean, I know the hard part for a lot of people is literally trusting that the process is going to generate the type of quality that they really want. So how do you actually do that?
Well, so a big disclaimer is that if you do a book right, it can literally stand the test of time, and it can generate leads and generate customers for you and your business for the next 10 years. In some cases, the next 20 or 30 years. There's some great books that you and I have read that we pay a lot of attention to that were written in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. And those business books are still effective at generating customers for those authors. So it's important for you to see your book as not something that is going to be used for the next 12 or 24 months, but really to see the book as a significant asset for your company for 10 years and beyond. And I'm sure if we looked at Russell's 2 books, which have been out for a while now, they're just as effective, if not more effective today than maybe they were 3, 4, 5 years ago. And that's why I believe it's important to invest the time, the energy, and in some cases, the money to make sure that this book is done really, really well. The other thing that I'll remind all of your listeners is don't listen to your mom because she was wrong. Books are judged by their cover every single day. And if your book doesn't look as good and read as good as any book you'd find on the front table of Barnes & Noble, people quickly discredit and discard it. Your book can build your authority, but if your book looks self-published, it looks cheap, if it's not well written, your book can just as quickly plummet your authority. To do it right, you want that book to truly stand the test of time. And if you want that book to really generate phenomenal leads and phenomenal new customers into your organization.
Well, Adam, obviously, that's what you guys do as a business. So tell me, what are some of the things you've learned from this that would help people either decide to work with you or decide to go and create their own book? What should they be thinking about at this point?
Well, a couple of big things are, number one, most entrepreneurs make the same mistake. And that is they create a book that they want. They don't necessarily create a book that solves a burning issue or problem that their target customer is having. An analogy I like to use, Dave, is bait the hook to suit the fish, not the fisherman. A lot of people, when they write books, their ego begins to get involved. And so they write the book that they want to write. But the question is the book that you want to write the book that your target customer actually wants to read? And usually there's a disconnect there. So the first thing that I would share with all your listeners that is so important is that if you want a book that will make you money, now, if you don't care about the book making you any money, then you can disregard everything I'm saying. But if you want a book to help you grow your business, then you've got to be strategic about it from the get-go. So the book is solving a problem that your target customers have. The book is well titled to literally speak directly to that target customer. I talk to people all the time, entrepreneurs that you and I would know. And I say, who is your book for? Who'd you write the book for? And the common answer is, well, everybody. Everybody would benefit by reading my book. And as soon as I hear that, I'm done. Because as really smart marketers know, the more niched, the more specific you and your company become, the easier it is to not only reach those people, but the more clearly you speak to them and the more attracted they become to you. Dan Kennedy, a mentor of mine, he taught me many, many years ago that the riches are in the niches. And so the more intentional you can be about your who, the more specific, the more narrow you can be about your who, the easier it is to reach those people. And the same is true with a book, is you need to create a book that is written to a very narrow target audience. And that book has to speak to them as if you were their best friend for years. And if you can do that, you can really see a book pull a significant amount of weight when it comes to marketing and lead generation and customer development.
I think it's fantastic. So as we kind of get close to wrapping things up here, Adam, tell me, what are the main takeaways you want our listeners to take away at this point? What are some of the main things they need to know?
So the first takeaway is this: not every single person should write a book. You should write a book if, one, there's a passion and a desire to share your stories, your passion, your knowledge with others. Number two, you should write a book if you can, in your mind, understand the plan of how a book can help you market and grow your business. That's, of course, assuming that there's an ROI goal that you might have with the book. And number three, you should write a book if you have a bigger idea as to how that book can help drive your authority, right? We started the podcast by talking about Trump and specifically how he had used authority marketing. And what I want all of you to realize is I don't want any of you to go become Trump. I want you to become the authority and the celebrity and the expert in your micro niche. Because when you are the go-to guy or the go-to gal in whatever industry it is that you're in, you'll literally have a line of customers beating down the door to get into your business. And that's a great position to be in. So you've got to have passion and desire to do it. You've got to see the big picture of how a book can build authority and how you can monetize that authority to grow a business. And the last thing that I would say is you've got to be willing to put in the time, the effort, and the money to do it right. If you think that this is something that you can simply delegate to your marketing assistant, and in a couple of months and in a couple of $1,000s, you're going to have a great book, I can assure you that you're wrong. The authors that we work with, the book becomes a significant piece of their overall marketing strategy. Authority marketing becomes a significant investment because they are making the bet. And it's a very calculated bet, but they are making the bet that if they can position themselves and their company as an authority, it gives them an unfair competitive advantage in their market for a very, very long time.
I love that. Well, I know one of the things we talked about at the beginning was a free book you were going to give all the listeners. Where do they find that at?
Yeah, so I've got a great new book, Dave. It's titled Lead the Field. And the subtitle is How to Become the Authority to Dominate Your Competition. And we've got a free copy of that book available to all of your listeners. And that book can be found at Forbesbooks.com/funnel hacker. Again, that's Forbesbooks.com/funnel hacker.
Awesome. And we'll make sure we have that in the show notes for sure. So, Adam, what are some of the things they're going to find in that book?
Yeah, so in that book, we're going to talk about the 7 different pillars of authority marketing. Now, we didn't have any time to go into that, but there's some really great meat for what are the 7 different levers that you can pull to build authority. I'm going to talk in the book about the reasons why authority marketing becomes so important, especially this day and age. We're going to talk about case studies and examples of other people that have systematically and strategically used authority to build their business. and we're going to tie it all together to provide you, the reader, with ideas on how you can get started in your authority journey.
Awesome. Well, I greatly, greatly appreciate that. Again, everybody, that's at ForbesBooks.com/funnel hacker. Again, that'll also be in the show notes. Please make sure you guys get a copy of that. I think it is something you guys will really enjoy, especially as we've talked so much about the importance of becoming that authority. I know obviously it's one of the things we're using a ton within our business here at ClickFunnels. Russell's got 2 books that we use all the time, free plus shipping funnels that we've used to market those. And again, I can tell you it's been a huge, huge opportunity for us, especially going out to a new niche or a new audience and really bringing, as Adam was mentioning, really bringing in the right people into your business. So I highly recommend you guys go check that out. Again, it's ForbesBooks.com/funnel hacker. Adam, again, thank you so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it.
It's been a lot of fun. My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Funnel Hacker Radio Podcast. If you'd like to be notified anytime we release a new episode, just subscribe over at funnelhackerradio.com. In addition to that, we'd love to send you a free gift. You can find that free gift at funnelhackerradio.com/free trial. One last thing is we love giving away cars. So if you'd like access to a free dream car, all you have to do is go to funnelhackerradio.com/dream car and you'll get all the details. Thanks again for listening.